Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Hope all of you are doing well today. So in this video I'm going to be discussing a couple of things that will make Santa Muerte mad at you. And mad is a very strong word, but these are more so, think of this as things you don't really want to do because it won't make her very happy. If you're a devotee, you want to do your best, you don't want to upset her. And there's not really too much to it, most of it is very common sense, but I'm going to go over a couple of things anyway. The first thing is you don't want to treat her like a genie. You don't want to treat her like a vending machine where you just put in an order and she spits out your petition, your desire, your manifestation, whatever it is you're asking her for. She is very powerful. She can bend the laws of nature. She can tweak the threads of fate and life to bring things into your reality that you petition her for, or she can choose to keep something from you in order to better serve you or to potentially protect you from something. However, some people who are aware of how powerful she is, they think to themselves, oh, she can accomplish anything, so let me become a devotee and she can start giving me everything I ask for. It just doesn't really work like that. And if you create an altar to her, you start trying to work with her, you start trying to pray to her, but all you're really doing is asking for things from her right off the bat. The first time you call out to her, you're immediately already asking for things. You don't really want to do that. You want to cultivate a relationship. When you work with Santa Muerte, it is a lifelong relationship. It's a lifelong connection. It's not really something momentarily. It's not like one of those beings where you can reach out to them, ask for something, offer something. Some beings are like that, but Santa Muerte definitely is not. And because she can see into our minds, she can see into our hearts, she pretty much knows our intentions and our motives. So if you are coming at her with the intention of just trying to use her basically without the love and the reverence, or she may not even show up and you'll just think you're talking to her and it's just something in your own imagination. She doesn't like to be used. Nobody does. Not in this way, not in this type of relationship. And so one of the things you can do to get on her bad side is to treat her relationship, your relationship with her, your devotion to her as very transactional. You don't want to do that. Another obvious way to get on her bad side, to get on the bad side of Santa Muerte, is to break your promises to her. You don't usually have to make promises to her. We make promises to her in order to illustrate and display our devotion, but you don't ever want to make a promise you can't keep. You don't want to make a promise that you're unable to keep. For example, I come home from work most days, I'm incredibly exhausted. I can barely keep my eyes open. And so I would not make a promise that I'm going to do the rosary, a very long, long prayer, every single day. It's just out of the question for me. You don't want to tell her, oh, I'm going to buy you a bouquet of flowers every day, but you don't have the money to afford that. You don't want to make promises you can't keep. She sees what our abilities are. She sees what we're able and capable of doing. You don't need to go above and beyond to the point where you are messing your own life up. She wouldn't want you to do that anyway. So don't make any promises you can't keep. It just looks bad and it comes off like you're almost lying in a way. You don't want to do that. Making promises to her is nice and it's wonderful and it's fun to show your devotion to her, but you don't want to promise things you cannot come through on, or promise to stop doing something when you are hopelessly addicted to it and then you fall back onto it, for example. Just be aware and be wary of over-promising or potentially promising on things that you might have a lot of trouble keeping up with. Take stock of your life, take stock of your habits, your time constraints, your money constraints, all kinds of things like that before you make a promise. Because breaking promises is a no-no, and you're going to end up having to come to your altar and not grovel, but come to your altar and apologize for breaking the promise. And you don't want to have to be in that position in the first place. A third thing you don't want to do, obviously, probably should have been number one, is you don't want to disrespect La Santa Muerte. What can this look like? It can mean being crude to her, saying disrespectful things to her, talking down on her, talking bad about her to her face or to people behind her back. You just don't want to do these kinds of things. Some people, they don't have reverence. They don't have that deep deep-seated well of faith in beings outside of themselves. So even if they are working with, praying to beings, all kinds of beings, they still have the nerve to be in their ego and be disrespectful, and blatantly so, and speak ill on the name of these beings. Sometimes even a being won't come through for them right away, and the first thing they'll do is badmouth them. This is incredibly disrespectful, and you never want to do anything like that. 99.99% of devotees would never disrespect La Santa Muerte in any way, shape, or form intentionally. There's always those few people who are so caught up in their ego that they kind of need to be told. And thus, here I am telling you, do not disrespect Santa Muerte. The fourth thing I wrote down is that you don't want to use La Santa Muerte to threaten other people. La Santa Muerte is not your attack dog. I've made an entire video about this, but it bears repeating. You don't want to use La Santa Muerte to scare other people, to threaten other people, to bully other people, to intentionally make others uncomfortable, to frighten them. You never want to do that. It's a gross behavior. It's so disrespectful on so many levels. And with Santa Muerte, her devotees are already so looked down on by the general public. Just because of her effigy, her image is already so frightening to people as it is. People who don't know of her as being kind and loving in spite of what her image looks like. And there's so many negative stereotypes being perpetuated by media, by the police, and things like that. And the last thing you want to do is kind of feed into that. You're giving more kindling to the bonfire of religious fanatics who are vehemently opposing La Santa Muerte. The devotees are still being discriminated against. There are people who cannot openly devote in other countries, like I said. I mean, discrimination happens even within households, but just a few weeks ago, maybe a week or two ago, there was a church, La Santa Muerte, the first church that was built in, I want to say it was in Guatemala, and it was burned to the ground. Somebody broke in, they smashed all the statues, they burned it to the ground. It was premeditated. Shrine, the small church to Santa Muerte being built, and look what happened in the dead of night. It was destroyed. It was burned to the ground, and this was discrimination openly. And so for you to kind of perpetuate the idea that Santa Muerte is evil or scary is so gross and a huge disservice to your fellow devotees, and it's a slap in the face to La Santa Muerte because you're misrepresenting her. It's like you taking all the love and kindness she's given to you, all the attention and guidance, and you're turning it around to turn her into this monster that she really isn't. And so you never, ever, ever want to use La Santa Muerte to threaten other people. Another thing I wrote down is that you never, ever want to discard La Santa Muerte. What do I mean by that? Sometimes people will gain interest in something, and it'll be like a hyperfixation for a little while, or they'll be obsessed with something or just into something, and then they lose interest, they discard it, they set it aside. And you can't really do that with La Santa Muerte. She's not something you just pick up and throw away. Like I mentioned earlier in this video, she is a lifelong commitment. And so if you are a devotee of La Santa Muerte, if you make the decision to devote yourself, you're devoting basically for life. And it's not like some horrible thing you got locked into. Devotion to La Santa Muerte is a beautiful and powerful thing, and she is loving and protective and kind, and stern if need be, but it is a wonderful relationship. However, if you get in and you realize, oh, I don't really want to do this anymore, and you just kind of cast her aside, you're going to make her upset. Understandably so, because you knew what you were agreeing to, and then you change your mind. And for being wishy-washy, it comes off as being very disrespectful. And you don't want to do that with her. That's why you should always take a lot of time to really think about it before you decide to devote, before you choose to devote. I have a video on my channel called Choosing to Devote. It's an entire video dedicated to helping you decide if you even want to become a devotee. I bring up a lot of things that you may not even consider if you are wanting to walk the path with La Santa Muerte. Definitely check it out if you have not already. Another thing that you don't want to do is crowd La Santa Muerte's altar with statues of other beings. Now, some people put other statues on the altar, like Jesus Malverde, Saint Michael, or the Virgin Mary. Those are kind of exceptions to the rule, but generally, you don't really want to put other beings on the altar. People use this as a moment to say that she's very jealous, she's very angry, and it's not really that. I just think that when you give a spirit, a being, their designated area, it helps them to create that energetic resonance with you. And if you crowd it with other beings, it feels like it kind of jams up the frequency. It's too many people stacked on top of each other. And it's more respectful to give them their own spaces if you can. Now, I've known of some people who have altars, like one altar with all these different beings on it. And I don't know the details of their personal practice, but as a general rule of thumb, across the board, we usually almost always give her her own space. It's the more respectful thing to do. And if you crowd a bunch of people on her altar, especially if you have more space to separate her from others, it can come off like maybe disrespectful for obvious reasons, because you couldn't give her the respect to give her her own designated space. The last thing I wanted to discuss briefly that you don't really want to do is let the altar become dirty. A lot of people will, and this is not me referencing flowers wilting in a normal way or something like that, or the altar getting dusty over a long period of time, although you don't want it to get like that. I mean, like people spilling ashes and stuff all over the altar, like incense ashes, and just leaving it, or things like that. Dusting, keeping the altar free of dust is another thing, but I would say you want to wipe down the entire altar, like deep clean the altar at least once a month. You can do it anytime throughout the month. You can have a set day to do it. It doesn't really matter. But you don't want to let the altar become dirty, covered in dirt, dust, food crumbs, old flower petals, incense ashes smeared everywhere. You don't want to let it be like that. This is your temple. This is the shrine to La Santa Muerte in your home or wherever the altar is. This is the bridge that facilitates connection. You don't want the bridge covered in trash and filth. And this is like a sacred place, a place of reverence and respect. You don't want it to be filthy. Not only that, aside from the fact that it's very, very, very disrespectful, but also you want clean, clear energy. Dirt invites low vibrational energy. The more dirty it is, the more bad energies are going to be around. And bad energy attracts bad spirits, bad luck, things like that. So, this is the last thing I wanted to bring up in this video. It's just a couple things you don't want to do if you want to stay on La Santa Muerte's good side. If you do any of these things, some of these things, just apologize. Just apologize. If you do anything wrong, it's not the end of the world. She will not smite you. She's not a wrathful God. She is very understanding, and she's very compassionate, and she understands the hearts of her devotees. She understands our motives as humans. Just go to her sincerely with a lot of integrity and just apologize. If you like this video, then please drop a like, and if you want more like this, then of course subscribe for much more Santa Muerte content. I also have a very large Santa Muerte playlist over in my channel on my homepage. So thank you so much for watching, thank you so much for listening, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Take care.